Okay, so next up we have discovery, and I'm going to turn the time over to Rex to talk about what we've been working on from a discovery perspective. Rex, over to you.
Thanks, Robin. As we continue to enhance discovery, we're working on connectors always. Lots of customer-driven feedback on the existing connectors, but we have two new ones that we're working on. One is Verima, or Avanti Neurons for Service Mapping, and we're bringing and enhancing those settings inside of it. We're also working on a Spike of building an outbound connector for ServiceNow. We're working through what that is. It's going to take us more than just this quarter, but that we've started and laid the groundwork for that. Now, in the last quarter, we worked on enhancing all of our connectors that connected to Rapid7, Qualys, and those types of things that bring in exposures. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to add in a view on a per device that shows the additional inventory attributes of the threat intelligence or the exposure views. So with the connectors that we've had from Qualys, Rapid7, etc., in inventory, we have the exposure data, and we're now going to add that into that base view. All right, with that, Robin, back to you.
Fantastic. So over to Workspace then. So from a Workspace perspective, we already touched on the people aspect of this one, that exposing of the attributes for filters. Remote control is, again, a huge area of investment for us as well. So we continue to bring improvements in there. We have already actually bought in the latest version of remote control, which gave that session switching capability. The other piece we're working on, of course, is the ability to disable the end user prompt on a policy basis so that you can choose different settings for different devices. So up until now, of course, it's been a back-end setting that we can change globally. But again, many customers want that capability to be able to say, well, for unattended devices, we just want to have automatic connection, but for user devices, then we do want users to be able to click through from an acceptance perspective. So the team are busy closing out the work behind that one. From a broader device view perspective, so again, following on from Utslav's overview, the MDM convergence aspect, so being able to manage any devices from within the Neurons platform is a key piece of work that the team continuing to work through. We are going to be talking about surveys. I'll give a brief demo on that one shortly, but being able to bubble up the survey score as a part of the overall DEX score is a piece of that functionality. And when it comes to the ability to trigger bots against multiple devices or trigger a bot against devices, one of the key pieces of user feedback that we've seen recently is, hey, it's great to be able to apply additional layering of the permissions on a per bot basis so that you can control for exactly which users a bot shows up for, but it'd be much easier to manage if we could have that tied against roles as well. So again, we have bought that capability, and that's already there for you to go and assess and use and leverage. So moving on to Edge Intelligence. So Edge Intelligence, there are a number of pieces of work that the team are working on there. So under the hood, of course, you are aware, hopefully, of the edge monitoring capabilities that we've been working on. So a lot of the energy of the team has been going into bringing those policy-aligned setting capabilities. So that's going to be something that sits a little bit further out against our July release. So it's not called out on these slides. But again, we'll continue to engage with folks who've been working with us from an early access perspective to be able to test and get early access to those settings as they come through. From a sensor perspective, there are a couple of new sensors and a sensor enhancement as well. So first of all, the login activity performance and details. The login sensor is one of the most heavily used sensors within the broader Edge Intelligence feature. And that's because it gives you that visibility of what is happening in the login process, what's the breakdown. Now, the experience today is very much a drill down experience where you get that qualitative view of what's happening on a single endpoint. So what this new sensor capability will do is the ability to have a look at the elements that make up the login and then understand a fleet-wide view of if we identify a problem component, well, what is the performance of that component. So incredibly useful as you're planning environments, as you're making changes to login scripts or things like that, where we want to be able to understand, well, what's the impact been on the digital user experience. Crash dump summary and details gives us the ability to go and read the mini dumps that are created when an application crashes. So that is really a click deeper than the blue screen sensor that we have today. So this is able to go and scrape that top level metadata off and surface it up. So we have a more robust way of identifying actual crashes of processors and operating system. And then we're bringing out some enhancements to the app state to increase the breadth of data that we collect for that. And so that is the login sensor that we just touched on there. The crash dump summary details. Again, it's going to just be able to output more columns of metadata. And from an app state perspective, this is the key focus behind this one is to take into account AppX instances, which were currently excluded from the sensor. So it accounts for all types of Windows apps. Okay, moving on to healing, and I'll invite Alan, first of all, to talk about the exciting things that are coming from an app distribution perspective. Alan?
Yes, thanks, Robin. So for app distribution inside of the healing module, we have 3 new features, and there are slides that we will go through those here following the header slide here. But the 3 new main things that we have coming out, first is the, yeah, okay. That's fine. Cloud Storage Explorer is the first one here. So what does this mean? So currently in app distribution, you need to create a URL or copy a URL and paste it in when you're doing a file download. And if you're getting it from Azure or AWS, that means you have to open that Azure tool or the AWS tool and go get the SAS URL or the persistent URL on AWS. But now we're making it so that you can just browse right to those storage, the content storage areas themselves. So we'll allow you to put in your credentials within Neurons. Actually, they'll be stored in the credentials area inside of Neurons, and you can just go select that set of credentials. And when you select Azure Blob Storage, for example, it will open up a browser, allow you to go directly to where you have your files stored in Azure and select the file directly. Same thing with AWS S3 buckets. So it's an easier way for you to manage and access your files that you want to be able to deploy through app distribution. You can also upload files through the UI that we'll be providing as well. Okay, the next one that we're adding this quarter is access to Windows Package Manager. Some of you may or may not be familiar with Windows Package Manager, also sometimes referred to as WinGet. WinGet is actually the executable that resides on a Windows 10 or Windows 11 device. Some people are using it already, but what this does is it allows you access, it gives you access to over 2,600 packages that are out there. So it's a very quick way of grabbing content or creating content and going grabbing updates to Google Chrome, for example, as you see in here, or many hundreds and hundreds of other packages. And so we'll have a direct access into that where you will be able to browse Windows Package Manager library and create an app very quickly so that you can be quicker and more responsive to people in your environment that need apps that are already available in that repository. We're excited about that one. And then the last area that we have is exposing the public APIs or making the APIs for app distribution available so that you can start implementing it, putting it into your processes. We have both partners and customers who are interested in being able to put together a process that includes app distribution. So having APIs available to you to use is going to be critical to allow that to happen.